Did they like fake a monitor to overlay on top of a OBS recording of their speed paint? Look at that. Why is it doing that jump? It's literally for a split second, like right here. And one thing I really want you to take note of is look at the thickness of the monitor edge, which is again, really thin, right? Can you see it shrinking? And then you might be like, oh, maybe it got too dark, so you can't see the monitor anymore. Maybe. That is possible, but take a look right before it gets too dark to see the top of the monitor. It's shrunk half the size of what it used to be in the beginning of the video. Let's go from here back to here. Is this artist tracing AI, passing it off as their own work, and cosplaying as multiple different artists online? Or is it just one unfortunate artist being falsely accused of using AI in their process when they themselves are innocent? Let's take a look at this situation involving this artist by the name of Kiro. This all kicks off with this post made by an account named Wolf. And again, don't send hate to any parties involved. Wolf writes, doing some digging around the comments, it seems Helicopter Food, aka Kurotan, has multiple accounts all with the same style, all with their own Patreons, all using the same format for generating high engagement. No clue, monetary gain maybe? Other accounts include Lappa Lil Pup and Frostbite Nerd. So first off, they have similar styles, a same layout, same format, white backgrounds, they are the same person. This is one of the account's Twitter pages. Going by the name Lappa Lil Pup, here is another account going by the name Yuki, aka Frostbite Nerd. And this is the final and main account we're talking about, Kiro, aka Helicopter Food. One thing I also want to note is like this format of pumping out meme related art pieces with the white background. Just because you do that doesn't mean you've used AI. Does not. But there was already a ring of artists that are based in Cyprus that have a really similar MO of pumping out art literally every single day in the exact same meme format. And it was like basically confirmed that these guys were using AI, and it likely was run by like small group of people slash one person, and they're all related in some way. So this is something that we've already seen before. But again, like other artists also do this for fun. Just because like you participate in this type of like engagement format of art doesn't mean you yourself used AI. But Wolf points out the handwriting being really similar across the three accounts. So this is Helicopter Food's handwriting versus Frostbite Nerd's handwriting versus Lappa Lil Pup's handwriting. And they note that the way they cross their T's is very indicative across the three. One thing also that I'm just looking at is that they all seem to use the exact same brush, which is not the end of the world, especially if it is a default brush within the drawing program. Kiro uses Paint Tool Sai. There just are probably some default brushes that are more popular than others. It's just one interesting thing to note because this brush is like a pen angle sensitive brush. So as you put your pen down and draw, the brush will be the thickest. And as you end your stroke, the brush is the thinnest, right? So as you can see, as they draw their A, as they pull downwards on the tail, it's the thinnest down here. Now, one thing that I'm also looking at the handwriting that I think is super interesting is they write their eyes upside down. I am leaning over a bit because I'm like too lazy to move my drawing tablet, but I'm using a brush in Clip Studio Paint. It is a different program that has a very similar like drawing style where it like when you let go or when you go downwards, right? Like the tail thins out right here. They write their eyes upside down if you notice. Like their eyes look like this, where it is thinner on the top part of the eye than it is on the bottom. I feel like depending on how you were taught how to write, at least from my schooling experience in the US, I was taught phonetics. So you had to like trace letters, right? You are taught to write the I downwards, like going down. So if you were to write it quickly, it would look like this if you were to dot your eyes like that. But they write it upside down where they pull from bottom up, which is much more rare from what I have seen anyways in terms of writing this letter. It's not very common anyways to see that. Especially between this I here in this word and then the I and the frostbite, you can really see the bottom up writing of the I. Wolf continues, same art style, same person. Top right image was taken from Helicopter, aka Kuro's Trace Speed Paint, and the bottom right image is from their other account, Frostbite Nerd. And this looks to be, I guess, the full image of Frostbite Nerd's drawing. The eye shape is very similar, and the way they draw their eyelid as well, they draw like a line here and they have a little one coming out like this to make like a very sideways looking Y that's also featured here. They also do like this type of kind of like winged out lashes like this where you can see, you know, one point here and then one point this way as well. The eye shape is really similar. The face angle is also really similar, with like the head being quite like compressed in a way where the eyes, the nose, and the mouth are all very close together. It's like an art style, right? The angle is also very similar. playing devil's advocate here, the colors are quite similar, but the shading is different. This person uses like a gradient kind of like under the pupil. This person uses like a half semicircle as part of their shading. One thing to also note though that I find pretty interesting is the brush thickness, and the brush type itself looks also to be the same. Like the brush that is used to do the line art looks the same between top and bottom, which again, if you use an art program and you guys happen to use the same art program, you might just end up using the same brushes. But what are the likelihood that the head angle is the same, the eyes are very similar, and it's like the exact same brush and the exact same thickness as well with the brush. Now, Wolf continues, Kuro may have even stolen one of Shut Up Jen's characters, Ouija. There unfortunately exists a model of the character, and it was likely traced as the offending pieces are created November 2025, while the model based off of Jen's art has been around since March 2025. On the left, we have Jen's work of their character Ouija. Notice they are a Dalmatian with one black ear on the left, one white ear on the right. Notably, there is a white heart that's super cute and featured on the left ear. And in Lapalil Pup's artwork, you can see that black ear plus white heart combination is featured. Not only that, the hair also looks really similar too, like both in terms of like the style, fluffiness, and they both have white hair. Again, white hair, a lot of characters have white hair. It's a very common color to be used, but all of that styling alongside the very strong similarities in the ears is just very interesting. And this is the Civit AI model based off of Jen's artwork. Now, Wolf also notes that Kuro's Fur Affinity account was suspended since December, and all of their art except one was removed from E621 following an investigation. So here we have the investigation with a whole bunch of dates that is noted. The investigation starts November 1st, 2025, where they're basically going over the art style of Kuro, how Kuro had uploaded 35 images prior to the release of Stable Diffusion, August 2022, and that they hadn't posted art for a while, and then they started posting art again in 2024, and then in an art piece made August 2024, that piece suddenly had a very different coloring style and facial structure compared to their older art pieces, and then from then on, that art style shift was kept in their artwork. And it says that their art started looking more and more similar to popular AI pieces coming around that time. And it notes that starting in 2025, January, they started posting almost every single day, with some days having 2 or more images shared. So again, this is something that's a bit indicative of an account using AI, because fully rendered pieces like that, it's really hard to produce in such high frequencies, right? You might again say, well, you know, maybe they have some backlog of art that they're posting, etc. They have been posting those since 2018. So it does seem like if they had any backlog, it's already been posted to social media. Maybe potentially in the 1 year break they took, maybe they didn't draw for a while, or maybe they drew and just like saved up the art pieces. But it's just interesting that they're showing some tendencies that you will commonly see with AI art scammers. Again, one of them being immediate quick shift in art style that happens to also look very similar to popular AI models at the time, to again posting in very high frequencies. So it notes that Kuro had posted 2 art pieces they traditionally made, but the investigation added that they themselves feel like they can't fully trust it because there were previous instances of artists who shown that they could draw traditionally, but were still revealed to have used AI. This is again another thing. A lot of these AI scammers actually can draw to some degree. That's honestly the worst part, because they can draw and they just chose not to, but that's why they are able to produce traditional works if asked. Then the investigation notes the appearance of another account by the name of Hellhound Uwu, which posted a bunch of AI-assisted images from February to late March, I'm guessing around 2025. Then they basically wiped everything, and only at the time that this was written, followed 2 accounts, Kuru and another account called Jinx, and their Fur Affinity had a Patreon advertisement in the same style of Kuru's promo images on Twitter. So the investigation concludes that this Hellhound account and Kuro are the same person. Then it adds that 2 video recordings were submitted to E621's janitorial team, and a reasonable human workflow was observed that was consistent with Kuro's newest works, but didn't prove or disprove their pieces from 2023 to 2025. It also notes that of Kuro's Patreon, only 10% of their works showed work in progresses, and of that, only 10 showed line work consistent with the video recording, and the remainder did not. So the investigation concludes, while a subset of their newest and oldest works satisfy a certain level of proof, there are several posts in this middling range that lacks this proof and contains elements not present elsewhere, including their visual content, metadata, and a long period of sustained art output. This is another indication as to potentially this account having used AI to assist their process. It's when they basically don't ever post work in progresses. Again, every artist is allowed to post whatever they want. Some artists choose not to post work in progresses. Maybe they want to like hide their process, keep it mysterious, whatever. But the AI artists in quotes, right, don't post work in progresses because they don't exist, because there was generation, right? So about the art style, Wolf also had this post highlighting the changes. So 2019, this is their My Little Pony art, which they also stopped posting My Little Pony after a certain point. And it highlights, from 2019 to 2023, there's a consistent art style, which is Kiru's real art, made before AI. They had a developing art style, notably in the way they drew long, pointy snouts and muzzles, which you can see. It's quite long, it's quite narrow, and it's quite pointy at the nose here. 1, 2, here we have like some more examples of that facial structure. And then in their newer art after 2024, their facial structures changed significantly. The muzzle is a lot shorter, a lot boxier, wider. And again, it has that kind of like facial compression of like the face, nose, and mouth being very close together, the head being more diamond shaped. And it reads, a vast improvement, in quotes, in art skill and a sharp style change done in a mere 4 months. After having a consistent art style for nearly 6 years straight, it changes on a whim around when AI art peaks. Even if they were practicing every day, 12 plus hours in that time frame, it's very inhumanly probable to see that kind of progress in just 4 months. People in the comments are again 50-50. Some people are like, yo, I mean, just because you can't improve that quickly doesn't mean other people can't. Like, maybe they did legitimately improve that fast. There are possibilities in which somebody can make very quick improvements in a short period of time. I don't know, maybe you started studying art real hard 12 hours a day, you went to art school, I don't know, right? It's just one of those where like, even with super quick rapid improvements, which is not common, right? So this artist is already displaying a multitude of uncommon traits, super minimal amounts of work in progresses, a rapid art change where their art happens to fall in the direction of the way popular AI models look at the time, and wildly, wildly frequent outputs of one piece a day, sometimes multiple pieces a day. These are all getting a little finicky, right? You don't often see artists being able to do all of that. If you have one of the extremes, you typically don't have all of the extremes. But again, if somebody improved very rapidly in their art, you typically would see essences of their old style even in their new work, right? Like the longer muzzles. They seem to like it because they did it for like 6 years. So you would probably assume that that would be carried into their newer works as well. But you don't see any of that. The way they draw eyes also changed rapidly. They seem to like the narrow eyes, but they all of a sudden had like a very, very strong shift in the way they did their eyeliner as well for their characters. Because again, you can see in their older art, a lot of their older art has very prominent lower lashes, but the upper lashes are very non-existent. And in their newer art as well, these art pieces feature a lot of like white glistening shine slash highlights that again is not present in like any of their older artworks. You don't see like a strong emphasis on highlighting or shine. It's a lot more of like more realistic skin rendering, like a comic book-esque style, I would say. So it's just interesting. So Kiru, in response, dropped a speed paint titled, Since Many of You Are Interested in How I Draw. So this is the speed paint in question with a lot of canvas flipping where they are drawing a character from Sonic. I think one thing to note that's also interesting is that on the bottom, you can see of the time of the recording, like there's different canvases that are open. I believe they're canvases. I don't use paint tool size, so correct me if I'm wrong, but these are dated. This is November 1st, 2025, also November 1st, 2025. And this is their new canvas. Again, the art process is very interesting. Everybody has a different art process, but I just find it interesting. They go straight in top down, right, with how they draw. And then they immediately go in like drawing the chest and like there's no basically like blocking of the body whatsoever, like head here, torso here, here are the arms, like little sticks for arms. And then we fill in the detail. Everybody draws differently though. So some people do draw like that, but they kind of already had an idea of where like this part of the body was gonna go, where the shoulders were gonna go, but everybody draws differently. But this is again what I find interesting because take a look here. They're not following their sketch. Like in their sketch, their eye comes all the way out to here, and then look at where they start the line art. They drew the eye like half an inch over to the right. And then again, where they draw the lower lashes, they don't really follow their sketch at all. Same thing with, you can see like some elements here and like here with the zigzags and these swooshes. Like it's following the sketch, but not really. Once again, they're not following the sketch. Again, they're not following their sketch here. Like they sketched in a top with like a fishnet detailing, like a fishnet halter top essentially with like a necklace on. And then they drew like a t-shirt collar. Are they foregoing the fishnets then? I mean, every artist has their own thought process. Maybe midway they change their mind. But I'm just confused as to like why nothing is following the sketch. Like everything is like slightly off. Here, the barbell is a bit lower than where they drew this barbell. This one is like a little bit off from where they drew that. Even this eye swoosh is a little bit off from where the line is on the sketch. Like everything on their liner looks like it's on their sketch slash shifted over half a centimeter to the right. The collar, they drew the choker straight, kind of actually curving downwards if you look at this detail. And then they just drew it the other way. Like again, the shoulder is shifted over to the right a little bit. Like the thong strap is not in the right place again. Everything here is now shifted lower by half a centimeter. What I'm confused about, right? Because like if you have a sketch, you would probably follow it to some degree, I'm gonna assume. Right? Again, some artists, when they come to doing the line art, you're just gonna make like changes on the whim. Maybe you start looking at your sketch and you're like, oh, don't really like the placement of this or that. But like, it looks like they are following the sketch, but everything is moved over a little bit off of the sketch as if they're tracing something you can't see. Right? Like, I'm going into this trying to believe the artist. It's just odd to see that everything they're following is almost their sketch, but not quite. Like again, you see the thong is shifted over a little bit. Again, the wing is moved over a bit. And then they just didn't follow their sketch. They just completely changed the outfit, which is like fine. Again, everybody changes their mind. It's just interesting. They didn't follow their outfit, but somehow immediately knew like where to draw the bottom of the shirt, like how to change the shape of the choker so that it matches up with the body pose. And people in the comments are basically saying, yeah, but you've already showed us the speed paint actually. So can we see a newer one? And that's what I'm also really confused about, because like if there is a situation where people are accusing you of tracing or whatever, or like your art process, using an older speed paint is like an interesting choice. And another user, Tira, writes, a lot of people will see a speed paint like this and immediately dismiss tracing claims. What you don't see is the overlay app on top of Psy, which is why during the sketch phase, they never zoom in. And when they rotate, it's done very meticulously. I'll give it to this guy. They went ahead and moved stuff around to make the sketching seem organic. But even if the video is sped up, you can see when they pause for a split second to adjust the overlay on top to match the canvas position. Once the sketch is done, they aren't limited by this and zoom more freely. But most importantly, and something I see with these people tracing smexy girl art, is they always somehow draw perfect bodies and boobs, but the text on the shirt is flat and never accounts for the 3D curvature of the chest. As a certified big chest artist, I know what you are. Again, this speed paint has me so intrigued because somehow they're drawing their line art and everything matches the sketch, and in the upper body it matches perfectly if you shift their line art over, couple arrow keys to the left, and then when it comes to the bottom half of the body, everything is shifted downwards. It's kind of almost as if their overlay on top of their sketch somehow got moved over a little bit in the swap between sketch and line art, and that's why everything is shifted. It's just odd. Like, again, look at the side bang here. The side bang matches the sketch. It's just shifted over. Like, how is the entire piece moved over like this? Your sketch and your line art isn't gonna match one-to-one, but this oddity is just strange. So in response to people not believing that speed paint, Kuro posts another one. And this aroused even more suspicions. Because again, the accusation was the fact that they traced off of an overlay, right? Wolf adds this video, the same speed paint they falsified from 2 months ago. You think they would make a new time-lapse or live stream, but I guess it's too much effort to fake a new one. So in their video, they showcase a program called PureRef. I've actually never heard of this before. So you open a AI generated image or whatever you're gonna trace, okay? And then with some setting changes, like under appearance, making the application transparent, and then making it transparent to mouse, you can trace it. And if you record your speed paint using OBS, and it says, don't move your layer or zoom in and out as much, otherwise you'll have to line up the AI image in PureRef to trace again. So here you can see them showcasing that. If you zoom in too much, right, now it's not lined up to the reference anymore. You're gonna have to resize it to the reference and keep drawing. And it adds, in OBS, if you set paint tool side to window capture, you can hide the fact that you're using PureRef. If you're using like a desktop capture, it captures everything on your desktop. So that's what it would look like, which is so interesting, which is why my tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, I'm curious about your thoughts, why there might be a situation where your line art is not matching up to your sketch, right? Because you are tracing something that we can't see, but I guess somehow in the zoom in and out, you didn't line it up exactly. So maybe the image that you were tracing somehow shifted slightly over from your sketch. So now you're tracing the line art of the image and doesn't quite match your sketch because your sketch, moved. But in response to that, Kuro adds another speed paint, writing, I don't blame anyone for being confused. It's genuinely hard to tell what's real and what's not on social media these days. I don't hold it against anyone who got caught up in this. I want to say thank you to those who stayed kind through all of this. Love you all. And they have another video. So on the bottom, we can see that OBS is recording. And this way, because they're recording their screen, you know, we can't see that they have pure ref or anything else open. So they start drawing a head, drawing a bottle. Now they're lining their sketch. Again, what's interesting here is that their liner actually matches their sketch now. So then they added "my phone died." So we get a new clip. And you might think, well, they recorded their screen, so it's a done deal. But people were very suspicious about this. A fair amount of people in the comments were really supportive though, being like, yeah, you know, you proved it all, like, da-da-da-da. Other people are still very skeptical. We have people writing things like, have you tried streaming? Because that would be the best way to tell everyone you're not tracing. Other people write, I don't want to get involved, but curious as to why you only sketched on the not flip version of your canvas and only flip it, but you don't sketch anything. People are saying that things are morphing. They're adding things like there's no canvas pan, doesn't zoom or make corrections in line art. There's no undo, no rotating, and it suddenly looks more competent and natural as they start colors because you can't trace colors. And Wolf quote retweets this writing, this is a convenient angle you chose to shoot to hide your layers panel out of frame. So now we can't determine if you're tracing from an image within Psi hidden by chroma keying. Also, your phone battery happens to run out just after you're done with sketching and lining and starting to color. At which point you would no longer need to be tracing anymore for the rest of the process. No time is disclosed between these 2 points, and your computer clock would be a nice way of keeping track of the time lapse, but it's also conveniently out of frame with this fixed odd angle you chose. It's good you show your taskbar, no pure ref or other third-party apps to overlay with, and this is the first time you're using desktop capturing with OBS, as we can see the Psi title bar too. However, these used as proof would be rendered moot with chroma keying. And yes, IRL time-lapses can be fake with chroma keying. It's been done before, as in the case of Asami Arts. Which, by the way, Asami Arts is an artist that was exposed for tracing, and they posted a Speedpaint, and it was revealed they chroma keyed out of the Speedpaint. The reason you could find out is because in the corner you can see the color wheel, and in the sketching phase, the green is completely missing out of the color wheel, and it comes back in the second half of their art. Hello, your phone didn't magically glitch. You actively chroma keyed the green out in half the video. And they write, there was no color on the canvas other than black and white prior to the dead phone. And whether blue/green chroma keying, it would give them away with the Psi detection pen, blue, or the character's palette, green eyes. And another person adds, I don't understand the phone dying. There's no difference in the video, but also a red flag for me is no zooming during sketching or line art. So let's once again take a look at this, right? Again, this is a very interesting camera angle to use because as you can see, right, all the layers are missing. You can't see any of the layers and you also cannot see the computer clock. However, we can see the computer's fans. Like, I don't know, for the love of God, can't you just, whatever tripod you have your phone on, can't you just like turn your phone so we can see all of your computer screen? Also, just take a look at this because I'm going to speed this up, right? Look at their sketching phase and their line art phase. There's no zooming, but take a look at this speed paint that they posted in November and I'm going to like scrub through it, right? They're zooming in and out of the canvas. As you can see, the canvas is small. Oh, they're fully into the canvas now to do the line art. They're zooming in and out, in and out. Now they start coloring. It's just odd that your art process changes so much, you know, from zooming into the canvas to you literally never hit the scroll wheel again in this speed paint somehow. Like they didn't zoom in once. They only start zooming in, by the way, when they're coloring. That's the only time they start zooming in. Never did it prior to coloring, but in their other speed paint they did. So other people are pointing out a really interesting other factor in their video. Somebody writes, how can your screen's frame have a black outline? And somebody says, many computer screens have a black outline around them as that's where the resolution ends and there's no LEDs. Mine falls victim to that too. And somebody says, for the screen, sure, maybe, but surrounding the screen? And this is what they're referring to. These two lines right here. Let's revisit the speed paint. This is their monitor? Like the side angle of their monitor, I'm guessing? Because look, after their phone died, what is this like wobbly line? Maybe they just have a really thick monitor, but like this is the end when their phone died. This is the beginning. What are these lines? And then as you can see here, midway through, the middle chunk of the line fades away, but the rest of it remains really dark and opaque. Like just watch this. And then the resolution gets real crummy after right here. And another user adds, I think it's weirdly drawn and on top of the monitor so they can hide it. And you can see how closely the side of the PC moves, but not the art program somehow. You need to look really closely to see it. And in the time lapse, you can see a poorly drawn bluish white blob appearing out of nowhere. Look how it's covering the black line somehow weirdly. I think it's all hand drawn. So here, this is the blob they're talking about. That was what I was telling you to look at. I also noticed the recording of OBS. So there's two theories. Because again, right, they have OBS recording, but they showed us a phone footage of their screen. So what exactly was OBS recording. Maybe they were recording an OBS version of the speed paint of their whole screen, but they never posted it. I mean, you don't have to post everything and record. But they say their theories. 1, recording the time lapse to later overlap it under the hand-drawn monitor. Or 2, recording it with the phone through a green screen and recording a time lapse on the PC. Later again to overlap it with hidden traced art with a hand-drawn monitor. And I think one thing is interesting is what this user wrote. They write, again, the biggest tell is to try to place yourself in their shoes. Quote, if you were being accused of tracing AI, what would you do to prove your innocence? End quote. Showing myself drawing something with my hands, or streaming my art. Showing as much as I could, not these weird choices. Because, yeah, how come like everybody that's traced AI somehow has the crappiest, shittiest phone recording of their screen with the weirdest angles? There's always something cropped off, I swear, right? Like half the time you can only see half the screen, or it's literally like 240p, or this one, you don't see their layers and the time on the computer conveniently. Like it's kind of like if you are innocent and you're trying to prove your innocence, you're doing a horrific job of clearing your own name with some of these angles. For me, I'm just confused about these 2 lines, because these lines, I would truly be curious if somebody could recreate this with their own monitor, like film your monitor from this angle and somehow get these 2 really sharp, thin, dark lines on the side of your monitor. I am so confused. The border of their monitor is actually quite thin. So I don't know how you get a depth this thick out of your monitor. Like, it just looks so odd. And then again, when you scrub through, midway through, there's like a blob that appears that just distorts half the lines. I just think this top border is very interesting. Maybe I'm wearing my tinfoil hat for a little too long, but I'm so intrigued. Look at the top border of their monitor. But by the way, this is an extremely thin border for a monitor, but maybe you got some shmoney like that. Why does it like shrink midway through the video? Okay, we got to here in the video, right? I slowed the video down. Do you see that? I slowed it down to 30%. I don't know why, my brain just like wanted the number 30, but do you see how it jumped? There was the ever so slight shift with the Paint Tool side program when the monitor itself did not move. Let me back this up again. Do you see that? It's so minor, but the monitor didn't move. So why is your drawing program shifting downwards? Did they like fake a monitor to overlay on top of a OBS recording of their speed paint? Look at that. Why is it doing that jump? It's literally for a split second, like right here. So here we are again seeing a lot of jumping. I lowered the contrast on the video so you can see the monitor edge better. I could put it back to like where it used to be, which is like up here. Like, look at that jump again. Their Paint Tool side is once again glitching up and down. And one thing I really want you to take note of is look at the thickness of the monitor edge, which is again, really thin. Right? Can you see it shrinking? And then you might be like, oh, maybe it got too dark so you can't see the monitor anymore. Maybe. That is possible, but take a look right before it gets too dark to see the top of the monitor. It's shrunk half the size of what it used to be in the beginning of the video. Let's go from here back to here. That's like regular. This is just odd, where you can literally see the Paint Tool side glitch down and back up without the monitor moving. Dude, hold on. What is happening down here? Why is there white coming out from the bottom of your monitor screen? And you can see the taskbars. I'm not adjusting the colors. I've reset the colors to whatever was uploaded. Why can you see the taskbars stuff? Note here, right? Whatever this blue icon is, there's no white bar to indicate that it's open. So you don't see anything down here, but there's like a little white fuzz sticking out from beneath the bottom of the monitor here. Again, I'm just curious, okay? If you could answer me. What monitor do you use? I've seen many monitors. I've like never seen a monitor with a border this translucent, this thin, and that can somehow reflect the white on the bottom here. And see, at the very beginning, it's not that visible. And then look, as it gets darker, if you zoom in, you can literally see the white showing on the bottom of their monitor. I use OBS all the time. I record my YouTube videos in OBS. I've been using it for 8 years. I've never seen OBS create something like this. There's literally no explanation for that. Unless you faked a monitor. Because, okay, this is what also does not make sense, right? Somehow, your monitor border is so thin to where it's just this tiny little black edge, but then it's super thick on this edge. Or you have an absolute brick of a monitor. This is the regular thickness of the monitor border, which means we should see some of your room over here, no? Because this would be taller than the width of this monitor here. I'm just thinking if like the entire thing is bordered like that. But then again, there is no explanation for what looks like the highlights of your taskbar peeking out from the bottom here. Like, look at this. And maybe I'm being too nitpicky, but the final thing that just kind of confuses me a little bit is that you can see the room get significantly darker as the video goes on. Probably because, maybe took a while for them to record this, etc. Maybe this is my tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, but like, why does the screen brightness stay the same? Like, it is as bright as the sun is up, as it is really dark in the room. Like the screen brightness doesn't change. And typically, like if you're recording in a super dark room with 0 lights on, like let's say you just did not turn any lights on between A and B, because this is the main light source in your room now, I'm gonna imagine that your monitor is going to reflect light onto the objects around it, right? Like there's gonna be some sort of light reflection onto the edge of the monitor because typically there's some protrusion, right? A lip of the monitor. And we don't see any of that. We just see this weird protrusion from the freaking search bar down here. We don't see any reflection of the light reflecting onto the edge of the monitor. Because again, being super nitpicky, if this is the border of your monitor that is super, super turbo thin, when it gets dark, we should see this like turn brighter, right? It should be like a bluish white light emitted from your PC that's reflecting off of the monitor. Same thing with like up here. This is the border of your monitor, right? This super thin black border. Should we not see like a reflection of the white light? Ah, man, look up here, okay? There's like a split second, and maybe I'm looking too much into it. Like, I feel like I'm going crazy. There's like a split second glitch where like, again, the canvas shifts upwards. You can see the splitting right here, right, of the pixels. Like it's split right here. And the monitor lip does not move. And do you see the distortion in the actual image itself? How come the icons are warping and then suddenly it distorts back? The reason why I'm so suspect is because if you argue, oh, it's like a computer glitch, a phone glitch, whatever, they're recording on a freaking iPhone 5, which is why it looks like this. Like maybe I could believe you. Why is only half the icons glitching though? Do you see that? Only half of it's warping. Oh, and some of this. But do you know what I mean? Like only specific parts of the canvas are actually warping. Oh, and the color wheel conveniently. We see another instance of it happening here, where you can see again, part of the image is distorting. Look at the eyes. But again, like these buttons stay still. Well, actually this one is warping too, but like some of these icons are staying still, but the color wheel shifted down, the face distorted inwards a little bit. And this icon here is warping downwards. Again, it's not like the entire PC shifted because the monitor bar is not shifting up here. Or actually, it's distorting downwards a little bit here. You can see that. But these are just such weird distortions. We see it again. You see here how this bar is getting thinner, thicker, thinner, thicker, thinner, thicker. The monitor's not moving though. Thinner, thicker, thinner, thicker. The edge of the monitor is distorting a little bit, but it's not distorting in the way where it looks like the entire camera shook because they hit it or something. This is just odd. You see this here? Even in the beginning, there's speed paint. It's like throughout their speed paint, there's more warping happening. Like the monitor is not moving. This is warping. Part of paint tool size is warping. It's again warping. Here we have more shifting where the monitor is not changing, but this is shifting. Just download their speed paint, slow it down to like 25% and just arrow key click through it. And to wrap this up, as you can see here, there is idea theft happening as well, where they take like the meme format that another artist has made prior and they just recreate it in their own style. And like, okay, look, when things trend, people will recreate it, yada, yada, yada. You literally like ripped it one for one. You didn't even change the pose. You didn't even change the outfit actually. And everything is the same. They literally kept the color of the text the same. Like, I guess they color selected this and used that same shade of like gray, that like warm brown gray to write the text. This is so odd. I want to believe artists, but with the speed paint that scuffed and that chopped with that many inconsistencies in it, where it literally looks like they drew the monitor on. And I think people probably missed it here because the timeline bar of the video is like down here. So it's kind of obscuring the bottom of their monitor in this video. But until I see more proof that they are an artist that hand draws and a better speed paint video, this is not selling it. Because why does it look like you drew a monitor and put your OBS recorded speed paint behind your fake monitor drawing to try to pass it off as a speed paint? I've used OBS for 8+ years now, and I have no explanation for this. There's no reasonable explanation that could like explain away why it looks like this. And all the other inconsistencies in the speed paint. Wolf has this final post, which is E621's update on Kuro's investigation. This is noting the new speed paint. They write, the same falsifiable video of Rogue first shared in November, which omitted parts of the system's interface, making it possible to silently trace from an image without capturing in video. So that was the old speed paint we saw from November. The investigation writes, a video capture of their monitor with the system clock out of frame recorded from a static viewpoint. At 21 seconds in, an unusual movement is seen in the camera, along with a sudden change in lighting. Additionally, OBS Studio was visible in the taskbar with a red circle, indicating it was recording its own video. Given the double recording, the sudden change in lighting, and the camera angle at 21, and the failure to include any shot of the artist's hands or drawing implements, the visuals displayed on the monitor were likely to be pre-recorded or edited in post. So, at the end of the day, I am curious about your thoughts. Do you think this is a legitimate artist that is falsely accused? Do you think they faked the speed paint and actually drew a monitor to fake a speed paint so that people would not suspect the fact that they are tracing work? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. And again, don't send hate to any parties involved. So if you like this video, I appreciate it. If you like and subscribe, don't forget to check me out on Etsy. I have digital art there for streamers and creators. I also have a coffee with free resources like a free sponsorship guide. And I stream on Twitch 3 days a week. I've changed the Wednesday to a Thursday. So now it's Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 6 p.m. PST. So I hope to catch you all there or in another video. Peace.